Now, there's actually a lot of interesting Tennessee news to get to, especially with Tennessee politics. One thing that I didn't really get a chance to talk about yesterday, but I knew, it was kind of crazy coming out of the game yesterday, but it was something I meant to bring up, was the reelection of Mayor Tim Kelly. We've talked about him on the show. It's supposed to be like a nonpartisan position, but it's pretty well known. He's a liberal Democrat, supports the Democratic Party. But people might wonder why I didn't talk about the election more on my show in the last few weeks. I've mentioned it a few times because basically I knew that Mayor Kelly was going to win. And I knew he was going to win big, and it was not very big turnout from what I understand. And so I didn't want to bore you with a lot of the details there all the time, considering that it was not much of a shock. It was not going to be much of a shock that he didn't have much of a challenge and that he was going to win. If I really thought, there was a chance to defeat him, maybe I would have talked about it more. So that's just kind of an update on some Chattanooga news. But of course, right now we got to get to some Tennessee news overall as we're joined by Brandon Lewis, who is the founder of the Tennessee Conservative. Go to TennesseeConservativeNews.com and find out more about them. Brandon, how are you today, sir?
Man, I'm fantastic.
All right, good. So there's a lot going on, apparently, when it comes to Hamilton County politics, the Hamilton County Republican Party. You've covered that pretty well, of course, on your side, and you're a part of the Hamilton County Republican Party, so that's a big reason why. But what is the latest you think we need to know there?
So first, I'd like to think there were quite a few WGOW subscribers and Tennessee Conservative subscribers that were at the convention. According to then presiding chair Mark Harrison, it was the largest in recording history. So we had a huge turnout. And the Activate Hamilton slate, which included Gail Green, Dan Meehan, Ann Lowry, Kimberly Fiorello, and Tanya Miller, ran, and they won better than 2-1, and in some cases almost 3-1. And so it was a tremendous event. It was 6 hours of boredom and 30 minutes of excitement, but they did it. They did a delegated convention, which takes forever, instead of a mass convention, which takes about an hour and a half. So hopefully we can see that change in the future for the sake of people's schedules.
I mean, you didn't go up there and tell some jokes or something to pass the time? You didn't make it a little bit more exciting?
Oh, they filled it full of administrative wrangling, and so we spent most of the time doing that. And it's, as I told you when we were on here, and I've said this to anyone who will listen, which is not a lot of people in the establishment. They think I'm crazy, I suppose. But there's been a process over the last 4 years in leadership where they've truly pushed more people out of the party than are in it, even and just the way it's been handled. And so it was exciting to see that correction. And now I think this new slate of folks can set some goals, put some really good programs in place, and begin putting some serious W's on the board for the Republican Party in places where we haven't been competitive before in the past.
Okay, so it's a positive step forward. So I like to see that. By the way, if people want to find out more about the Hamilton County Republican Party, how can they do that, you think?
Well, they've got a Facebook page and a website. It up until now, it's not always been very updated.
Oh, okay.
So, look, for example, I had to find the Lincoln Day dinner a few months ago, and it wasn't hardly posted anywhere. So one of the big goals of the party leadership moving forward is just to have more timely and consistent communication and information out there, to build a larger list of people that we're communicating with and to do it more regularly, in addition to, voter registration and fielding and training candidates and all of those kinds of things, and bringing, more people that are younger, especially folks with young children, young families, into the fold. You always hear about young Republicans and you think about high school, you think about college, but the truth is most of the folks that decide to get politically active, truly politically active, usually don't do it until they start a family. Mm-hmm. And then it's when they realize, wow, I've got to raise my kids in this world, and so folks tend to step up in higher percentages even more during that time of life. So we want to make it convenient for them, not hold all the meetings during the day at lunch, not fail to provide child care, things of that nature, but to make it a little bit more inclusive of folks that have conservative views but want to participate.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I think that's pretty smart. I'm fairly new to the area, but there seem to be a lot of young, conservative, traditional families, a lot more than maybe I've seen in some other cities.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think that is reflected heavily in our disproportionately large number of private schoolers and homeschoolers in Hamilton County. If you look at the percentages in our county versus all the counties that surround us, I mean, it's a big, significant difference. And even when you compare it to the 95 other counties, and so typically when folks take a step to really get engaged in their child's education through their own efforts and money, they're not always more conservative, but they tend to lean that way, especially in the homeschooling environment.
Of course, and I'm sure you could talk about this a lot, but that's kind of a condemnation of the public school system in Hamilton County, right?
Well, I mean, when you provide something for free, I mean, it's not for free, right? They take your money, right, at gunpoint if necessary, or your property to fund the schools. About half of it or more goes to the schools. And so when it's bad enough that it's, I'm not saying it's free from an opportunity cost standpoint for most citizens, meaning you've already paid the money, you can use it or not. To have so many people in our county fail to use the school systems is a testament that they need to be improved.
Yep.
And so, and there's a bill I think we're about to talk about that is recently passed out of Senate committee that may give us at least a start in heading in that direction.
Yeah, it definitely has been a pretty big deal. You're talking about the bill that would allow public school districts to charge illegal alien students tuition to attend. It passed a Senate committee. Talk about more of the details of this bill. And, it passed out of committee, so you think it has a good chance of passing overall?
I do. It tends to be, although this isn't, we don't know yet. I think the House bill, if I remember correctly, is going through the House Committee on Education, I believe, on the 11th. And so we're going to, encourage those folks to let it pass through. But it tends to be that the Senate is less conservative overall than the House in Tennessee. And so usually if something gets through the House that is somewhat conservative, or Senate rather, that it will make it through the House. So I'm hoping it will come through. But there was a huge protest there, very heated, exclusively left-leaning folks there that think that Tennessee taxpayers should be on the hook for any illegal alien that just wanders into our country and brings their kid to the doorstep of a school. Like, we should have to pay $12,000 per student. So if you bring three of them, we're supposed to shell out $36,000 in federal, state, and local taxpayer dollars. And so this bill, which is brought by Bo Watson and William Lambert, and the hat's off to Bo Watson. This is the first time I've seen leadership do anything somewhat significant on this issue in the last 4 years. And so good for him. But here's what it does. It allows your school board. So, for example, I text messaged my school board member this morning, Ben Daugherty. He's the one that has Signal Mountain, parts of Hickson, and Red Bank. And I said, hey, if this bill makes it out and gets signed into law, I want to talk to you about it, because you as a school board now will have the authority to say, listen, we love kids, but we love our Tennessee kids, and we've got overcrowded schools. We've got more kids speaking Spanish than English in many of these schools. Howard is a good example, many other inner city schools. We think that we should not burden the taxpayers in Hamilton County educating illegal aliens. And so that's the first part, is the LEA can say, no, you have to pay tuition if you're not a U.S. citizen. Now, what it does require is that people enrolling in the schools have to show documentation that they're here legally. And that's a big step in the right direction by itself, because as the metrics start coming in, I think what we're going to see is we got a lot bigger problem than how people let on. And the data, I think, will drive further action. However, there was an amendment made late which says that the illegal alien could appeal to the Tennessee Department of Education. Well, the last time we had something that was supposed to help kids, the third grade retention law, they also later amended it that people could appeal it. And, of course, every kid that couldn't read just got shuffled to the fourth grade. Just about. It was like 98% of them. And so they passed these laws meaning to do the hard work of helping kids, and then they always seem to put some kind of escape clause in there that nothing ever really happens. So while this is in many ways kind of ceremonial, if people, if you're here locally and you know your school board member, you should text them, email them, call them, and say, hey, listen, are you for or against taxpayers funding illegal alien education in Hamilton County? And so if this thing passes through, it is my intention to go to the school board meeting and ask that question pointedly and see if we can get at least one Republican who's actually conservative to bring a motion. And it may not pass, but I think that all Republicans should be on record on whether or not they support it. I know that Republican primary voters don't. It's like 95, 96% are like, no. But politicians don't always reflect their voters that send them.
So even with the loophole that you're talking about there, where they can appeal it to the education, the state board of education, what do you support the bill? I guess that's the main question I'm trying to get to.
Yes. I mean, it's, our leadership has been so limp-wristed and unresponsive to the outcry from Tennessee primary voters on stopping illegal immigration in any significant way in Tennessee that when we get thrown a bone, even if it's a small little itty-bitty bone and it's not really what people want, it's better than nothing. And so what is it Fidel Castro said? Take everything away from them and give it back to them a little bit at a time, and they'll love you for it. And so that's kind of how I look at this bill. It's like it's pretty weak sauce. It's got more holes in it than Swiss cheese. But considering what we've seen out of Republican leadership, I'll take it.
Okay, I'm speaking with Brandon Lewis, who is the founder of the Tennessee Conservative. You can read more about that story, of course, at TennesseeConservativeNews.com. And, of course, on the issue of illegal immigration, some good news out of Hamilton County as well. We're actually covering a lot of good news today. It's a very optimistic segment today, Brandon. I mean, you talked a little bit about the negatives, but overall positive. We have the Hamilton County Sheriff that's seeking jail enforcement. If you were, model partnership with ICE. I actually spoke with the sheriff on the show when we were talking about it earlier. I think it was last week on the show we were talking about that whole issue. But talk about the story a little bit.
Well, I'm excited, and it hats off to our sheriff here, Austin Garrett. I talked to him at the convention at length. I'm hoping to have him on the program because I really feel like if some of these larger counties like Knoxville, I don't think we could get it out of Nashville, Davidson County, Murfreesboro, some of these like mid-sized areas where the crime is really proportionally rampant. The more urban the area is, the more the illegal alien crime is more proportionally rampant, the more there are larger pressures being put on the jails, the school systems, the healthcare systems, the welfare systems. So he is already proactively, without having a clamor of complaints, take note, people in the Tennessee Senate and House, you can take action without people complaining first. You can just read the tea leaves and do your job. And so it would allow deputies to identify arrested individuals who don't have U.S. citizenship in an effort to assist ICE. As I understand it right now, according to the ICE website, there are 65 law enforcement agencies have joined the model since 27th, and we're in a pending queue, but hopefully that will go ahead. And so I'm going to talk to Austin about this, and hopefully we can get some movement on it because we really, we obviously need to get folks that are here that are undocumented out of the country. It's illegal. You can't have a nation without borders. However, we need to start with the ones that are in the jails, the people that, get there. It is after the fact. It's not preventative, really, but it's a great place to start, and it needs to be done.
Well, it's a piece of the puzzle, so to speak. I mean, yes, we need to enforce it on the ones that aren't in the jails and then get rid of the magnets, which you talk about a lot. But I've seen stories out there in other parts of the country where the jails aren't enforcing it, So ICE has to wait until they're let out of the jail. Then ICE will try to go get them. But of course, that's dangerous. They're having to chase them on the streets when they could have just transferred them to ICE in the jail, and that would make a lot more sense. But of course, you have Democrat sanctuary cities that don't want to do that.
Absolutely. I mean, you have, if it were up to our mayor and other folks, almost every Democrat mayor in the state of Tennessee, if given their druthers, would do absolutely nothing about illegal immigration. And anything that's under their purview, whether it's county government, city government, as it relates to law enforcement, like they act like it's not a problem. It doesn't matter. But I mean, every week we run stories, and it's just the ones we can catch, which, with our limited staff, stabbings, rapings, drugs, human trafficking. There's a steady drumbeat. And I'm not talking about every week. It's like every day at least. And sometimes we got two. And so you got to figure we probably can only catch 2 or 3% of what's going on out there. So we may report 2 or 3 stories, but there's probably 70 or 80 more that we're just not hearing about.
Well, yeah, that's definitely true. I did want to ask you as well. You had just mentioned there the mayor. Any thoughts on Mayor Tim Kelly being reelected? You're not in Chattanooga proper, right? So you didn't. Am I wrong on that?
I used to be, but I'm a old campaign hand by trade, and I'm decently good at it. And I've ran 14 races or been intimately involved with them. I've won 14 races. And there's just a mechanical process that goes on for you to be at least competitive. And in my mind, there are 14 or 15 little check boxes. I'm like, okay, do I want to spend time, money, and effort trying to help this individual running for office? And Kelly just simply didn't have opposition. And that's one of the chief complaints of conservatives regarding the Hamilton County Republican Party is this. We could get a moderately conservative Republican or maybe even a somewhat conservative Democrat, somebody who is just moderate, right, who wants to pick up trash. Democrats used to want to do this, pick up trash, safety, make sure the potholes are filled in. And I think a moderate Democrat in Chattanooga with some conservative help could improve the city. I don't think that we can turn it red. I think that's almost an impossibility, but we can talk about crime in the inner city. We can talk about, trash and littering and loitering and panhandling and gangs. And those are things that even in the inner city, the mothers, grandmothers, fathers, grandfathers that are dealing with this, that are law-abiding citizens who live in the inner city, that are like, man, I wish our area would be better. And so one thing we'd like to see is legitimate, people to run that can actually win. And so, Kelly did win decisively, but, it'd be like if I won decisively against a kindergartner in a wrestling contest. I mean, it's interesting. I guess you won, but who were you going against?
Yeah, that was kind of my take on the whole situation. It's not why that basically explains why I didn't talk about it more, because from everything I saw, I was just like, it's not really a contest as much as I would have liked to have it been. Brandon Lewis is the founder of the Tennessee Conservative. Anything else, Brandon, before I let you go?
That's it. I mean, I would just say, guys, go to TennesseeConservativeNews.com, subscribe to our e-newsletter, because there's a lot going on in the Senate and in the House. So many folks will watch 15 hours of Fox News, but then you ask them, can you name one thing that happened in the legislature last year? They cannot tell you. And so I would just encourage all of you, as this legislative session comes to a close, to subscribe, to pay attention to the bills that are coming through. And if you see something you like, call and support it, and email and support it with your local lawmakers. If you see something you don't like, express that opinion as well. But if you're engaged, we can have a better, more conservative Tennessee. And if you're not, it tends to go the other way.
Brandon Lewis, founder of the Tennessee Conservative. Go to TennesseeConservativeNews.com. Like you said, you can listen to his weekly podcast as well. Brandon, appreciate it, my friend. We'll talk to you again next time.
Thank you for being the watchman on the wall, buddy. Talk to you next week.
All right, there you go.